Hello and welcome. I'm Peter, the host of this channel. And on this channel, I share my experiences as an independent explorer in the world of the occult and magic. I left the previous video off by telling my experience with third eye opening. Now I'm going to tell you about how grimoires and rituals came into my life and what experiences did I have with them. Once my third eye and the rest of my chakras became somewhat active, I started to become attracted to the dark stuff. Some call it the left-handed path, some call it straight up Satanism. It started with the introduction of the Grand Grimoire, the Goetia, the Black Pullet, and the Forbidden Rites. I found them on a YouTube video once and became fascinated with them. And in the meantime, I became obsessed with enlightenment and Illuminism. I was fascinated with the results that these books promised, and I wanted to know the truth about them, as I had this fanaticism with performing rituals, only I didn't know where to start off. My very first ritual didn't come from any of these books, so do not try this at home. It came to me subconsciously. It came in a form of an inspiration about a self-mutilating blood ritual where I would cut my hand and draw the sigil of Lucifer on a piece of paper with my blood. It was a pact-like experiment. I remember setting up the scene in a dark room with a blank piece of paper, some burning incense, and one burning candle. I was sitting in the middle of a circle, bare naked, and as I wanted to cut my palm, I realized that the knife wasn't sharp enough, so I had to literally saw my palm to extract blood. It was very painful, as you may imagine. I didn't know it back then that this was gonna mark me as someone who is serious about this journey in the occult, and that I was serious about my search of enlightenment. So what was the result of all of this ritual? It put me on my path, I just didn't know it at the time. It was a form of communication between me and the spirits. I wanted these demonic spirits to show me my path to enlightenment and unleash the hidden powers that lie dormant inside of me. This was the first and the last time that anyone got hurt during my rituals, by the way. However, there was one more profound element to this particular ritual. I didn't feel alone. I was totally sober, yet I felt a sense of unexplainable crowdedness. I felt that there were others in the room with me, watching, observing my actions, but no sense of threat. It was a little spooky, yet I felt assured that nothing bad can come out of this. On the contrary, and I was right. I didn't know it at the time that through these rituals I was initiating myself into something. A path that I never before took, but a path that was mine and mine only. So much for reading about spells and grimoires when even the most simple experiment can have such a profound impact. I'm not gonna go through here all the rituals that I did back in the early days, so instead I'll move to the next chapter of my spiritual workings, the ordeals. The ordeals were inspired by more than one source and were meant to elevate my state of mind and awareness to the next level. These were difficult experiments that were deliberately testing my limits, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. The first ordeal was the woods. The woods was about me going up the hill and spend the night in the woods all alone on a November night when it is kinda cold in my country. This was not about sleeping outdoors as if it was a tent and picnic kind of thing. Oh no. This was about spending that cold winter night laying on the ground without any sleep. I had to stay immobile for 8 hours without any phones, books, music, or company. The point was not to make a single move for 8 hours just like the trees and rocks around me. I was meant to be a natural part of my surroundings. Also, I was completely sober, which is important. I set the alarm clock at 8 a.m., then put my phone in my bag and started my ordeal at midnight, sharp. 8 hours of total silence and immobility while being left to the elements and the creatures of the night. All I could do was to stare at the sky and watch my breathing. I also had a mask on me which was meant to cover my face in case it started raining during my stay. The very first impression I got from that situation was a sense of oneness. Oneness with nature, as if I was just one pebble on the ground next to the trees and the grass. I felt a very profound sense of welcomeness from my surroundings, or a kind of assurance that nature doesn't want to hurt me or make me feel bad. If anything was uncomfy, that's just because of the cold and the dark, nothing personal, nothing hostile, a paradoxical discomfort that came with the peace I had. I remember feeling sorry for these trees and rocks around me, as they have to go through this ordeal every single night. And as I was laying there experiencing these emotions, something miraculous happened. To this day, I still don't understand how could this have happened, but it did, and then and there I knew I had got what I came for. I was looking at the clouds in my silent suffering when suddenly a very odd-looking cloud appeared to me on the sky. A cloud that had no color or material filling. I'm telling you, that cloud looked as if it came from an alternate reality. A cloud that wasn't white, gray, black, or in fact any other color from the color range that a human eye can perceive and process. It looked like a 3D model cloud. But it was not 3D wired cloud as you imagine one in a graphic design program. No, it was different. It was nothing like I have ever seen before in my life or in the movies. Nothing in my life has ever looked like this. I cannot describe it, but I had observed it for minutes as it passed the night sky. A fucking miracle. I saw through the fabric of reality and saw that cloud in its half-finished form. Then and there I knew that we lived in a matrix or something like that, no doubt. And you know what? There was another aspect of this miracle. I wasn't surprised or fascinated. I just laid there in complete silence and acceptance as if all of this was just the way it was and as it has always been. Let me remind you that I was completely sober and I had never tried any hallucinogenic drug in my life at that point, and I didn't perform any ritual or yoga beforehand. Then as I laid there for hours, my stay had started to become more and more uncomfortable. It started to rain, I lost track of time, I didn't know how long will I have to stay there, but boredom was slowly killing me. I started to think that I forgot to set the alarm and that I was going to stay here forever. It must have been 6 in the morning when I started to feel physical pain in my body from the lack of movement. And by around 7 or 8, I was literally feeling pain and agony in that position. I kid you not, I thought I was going to die soon. The last 10 minutes was like another 8 hours. I cannot explain the sensation that came upon me, but it was terrible. Boredom and physical pain from the cold and discomfort got out of proportions. Then suddenly, in the middle of my suffering, I heard the alarm clock go off. The relief I felt was like none before that. It was total and complete suffering. Yet it started out so simple and innocent. Like I said, don't try this at home. So what happened after? Nothing remarkable, except that my friends and especially my girlfriend at the time seemingly could not stand the energies that I emitted. When I asked her what is that she felt about me, she could not describe it. And what did I feel after that? I felt that I had the privilege to witness something miraculous and that I was ready for my next ordeal, which was sleep deprivation. Now this one was not an attempt to break any new world record. It was about testing my limits once again. At least that's what I initially thought. This ordeal lasted for 3.5 days during the same winter. I did not have a job at the time, so I could move freely. After around 36 hours, I felt as if I wasn't a part of this society. It was weird to look at the same people waking up in the morning, going to work, then come home in the afternoon and turn the lights off for the night, while I was constantly awake. After just 1.5 days, I felt like a vampire. Around 48 hours into my ordeal, I started hallucinating. I remember I saw a little snowing cloud on my desk, or there was that other time when I saw movements in the bush when there clearly wasn't any. I kept myself awake with coffee and regular walks. Around 80 hours into my sleep deprivation, I had to perform a ritual in the woods, a kind of magical experiment, if you like. According to this specific ritual, I had to go into the woods, where I would dig a hole in the ground, pour water into it, light 3 candles around it, and just stare at the water until my reflection cleared out. And so it did. No one was looking back at me. On my way to that spot, I got spooked by a stray dog who started barking at me and would not stop. Even when I arrived at the top of the hill, I could still hear him barking from down the valley. What was all this good for at the end of the day? Well, here's my take on it. The primary goal of these 2 ordeals was to experience these rather extreme shifts between different states of mind with active chakras. The secondary goal was to show myself the difference between a hallucination and a real-life vision or sixth sense communication. Because none of my hallucinations were ever like that I experienced in the woods with that cloud. I know it very well to this day that it was real. But more on the difference between random hallucinations and real-life visions in a later video. And thirdly, it made me understand that I was diligent, goal-oriented, and a couple of screws loose. And that even though I didn't know at the time where this was going, I knew that there was no going back to my old life. These were just tools for an in-depth self-discovery or self-knowledge, which is the main building block in any spiritual path, which again, I didn't know at the time. All in all, I can say that grimoires were an interesting read, and they got me spiced up for my magical endeavors, but at the end of the day, they served as a stepping stone for a more meaningful spiritual journey with psychic abilities on the rise. Psychic abilities that were not even listed among the Vedic siddhis or any of the magical texts. But more on them later. So that is all for today's video. In my next video, I will talk about my experience with secret societies. And until then, take care, continue to thrive on your spiritual journey. I love you.